Hollow footfalls echoing through empty corridors. The primal reaction of flesh brushed by an unseen touch. Shadowy figures slipping between the moss-covered boles of ancient trees. Strange calls issuing from not quite human throats, piercing the stillness of the night. Unusual lights and objects streaming across darkened skies. Stolen minutes and a void filled with obscure and disturbing memories. These occurrences and more are called by many whispered names in many countries around a world we believe we know so well. All of these things share a common thread. I'm Charles Romans, and welcome to the pathways leading to the shadows of legend. Today we have with us Sandrea Mosses, and she is a paranormal expert, a columnist, an author, and a psychic. How are you today?
Hello, Charles. I'm very good, thank you, and thank you for inviting me on.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for accepting. Now, people, when they think of the paranormal, it is a very broad range, and they always wonder, what was your first experience? So if you wouldn't mind, could you share with us how you got pulled into the paranormal realm, I guess you could say?
Yeah. Charles, I always talk about it on two levels, really. On the one level, as a child experience that I had, but on a professional level, I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing by a person called Val Smith. Val Smith was a spiritualist medium in the West Midlands, and there was nothing pretentious about Val or whatsoever, but she was a phenomenal medium, and I felt so lucky that she obviously saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And she very kindly said to me one night, "Oh, I'm going to come out, we're going to get..." I didn't hardly told me anything, and I was a bit of a scaredy cat, really, a bit afraid of the dark. I don't like to sleep without the light on. And we got there, and this lady was being terrified by things were happening in the house, lights going on and off, doors opening, things being moved. And it turns out that it was her husband, so a good spirit, who was just desperately trying to reach her and give us some comfort and try to give us some help and support. But I think he was a bit heavy-handed in the way that he was doing it, and I don't think knocking things off the side or flashing the lights was a way for a loved one to reach down.
Well, you wouldn't think that would be normal, but could it possibly be that they have difficulty communicating, so trying to communicate ends up being, what you said, heavy-handed? They might want to, the intent might be to knock, and they knock something over.
Yeah, I think when they first pass over, I think it's quite difficult, Charles, when they first pass into the spirit world, to try to get the energy level right. And I know as a medium, sometimes they'll come through, bang, 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 and the information they're giving you, and then it'll go vump, and down it drops. So I think what was probably meant to be a gentle tap was like a smack.
I see.
and the outcome was the poor lady was absolutely terrified by what was going on.
Right, because I would say at that point she had no idea what was going on, or she wouldn't have called you in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So that's how I got involved. And she was so matter of fact, she gave me no chance to think about it, no chance to read. Didn't even tell me what we were going out to do. And I came out and we solved the problem. The lady was happy, and the spirit went over, and it was like that, yes, I've done something good here. And that feeling of satisfaction that that you'd achieved something. That started me on doing more to help people who were having paranormal disturbances.
Well, if you won't mind, step back just a little bit. This is the lady that trained you. What does training for psychic ability entail? Or is it different with everyone?
When you train through the spiritualist church, it's a case of sitting in circle, and it's you sit with other people, and that you learn to discipline and control the link. That who is communicating with you. You learn to work through a guide, and you learn to get clarity of who it is. So you just don't throw yourself open. You're not a Friday or Saturday night party. Come in, guys. You're a I've got this person here, and you control it. And I mean, she was very disciplined with me. She was the kindest, gentlest person. Actually, I remember watching her. She'd got some goldfish, koi carp, that were like they must have been 6 inches long. And she used to go vegetarian for years, which was unheard of in those days. I mean, 10 years ago. She's got to be dead 15 years. And she'd go out and feed these koi carp, go, Mabel, and they'd come up and have food off her. So she was so gentle. But she would say to me, who are you with, Sandrea? And and I'd go, I don't know. And she'd say, well, tell me when you can. And she made me control my link. And it's that discipline that I think, when you're disciplined, it's that control. You're in control of it. You know who you're going to, who you're communicating with. And in that sense, I was very fortunate that I had somebody so disciplined working with me.
I would say it would eliminate a lot of the trial and error. And in the case of psychic energy, that could be potentially catastrophic for an error, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to know, you had to know who you were talking to. Obviously, you do your protection, so you know it's of the light, and you've got to know where you go. And when you learn that discipline of holding that link, boy, does it make life better for you, and boy, does it make life easier.
Well, you mentioned guides earlier. Could you elaborate a little bit on what a guide is?
Well, we're all born, Charles, with a guide. A guide comes down with us, and they're there with us to look after and protect us while we walk on this earth plane. Now, for some people, that's not their pathway to work spiritually or psychically, or with the paranormal. That guide will probably be, I suppose, just a little bit there, just twiddling their thumbs, having a bit of, just keeping an eye on you, looking over. I often think of something like a bit like a Wild West bar, them just looking out and just checking everything's okay, and you're doing all right. And they're carrying on with their life as normal. But if you work, that you'd have picked that guy before you come down here. You're going to have somebody that's going to work very closely with you. They're going to be more awake, you're going to be more awake and more in tune with them, should I say, and you're going to have a strong connection with them. They're the ones that are going to help you and guide you. And once, they're always there to help you. Everybody has a guide, Charles. Everybody has assistance. We just have to have the belief to know that we're worthy, and the trust to know that we can communicate with them. It's belief and trust.
I see. Now, of course, there is a negative side to all of this. There are entities out there and possibly violent spirits. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh, absolutely. We've talked about the lovely good side, and the dark side of it is that that we live in a way. I often talk about different layers and different levels of spirits, non-entities, demons, whatever you want to call them. And the first one I talk about is the lost soul. That the soul has died. They've never connected with the spirit world. It's never been in their world. They've never thought about it. And then suddenly they die and they don't realise they're dead. They're not harmful. They're not going to hurt anybody. But just imagine getting home tonight, Charles, and seeing somebody living in your house. Because if you thought you were still alive, yes.
It would be disturbing, yes.
Yeah, what a cheek. You're in my, and there are those, there are those that sometimes will stay close to try and help out their loved ones. Don't we, folks? They want to try or there's unfinished business. And then we start going in the darker realms. We get those that haven't gone over because they're too hooked up on the on the gluttony of life. The addictions that they can't move over. Because they don't want to move away from, the smell and the alcohol and the drugs and the smoke. And then you've got those who are a bit malicious, and they've done bad and they know they've done bad. They ain't going anywhere. They're going to stay here and they're going to continue in that bad stream. And then we start to move into the realms of the non-human entities. They're the ones that are the most dangerous. They're the ones the most powerful. Do we call them demons? Do we call them whatever we call them? They don't belong in our world. They should never get in our world. Rips and tears, portals open, gateways open, and they get in. And they are psychic entities. And they are thinking, living, not breathing psychic entities. And, these are the really dangerous ones because they listen. They can plant thoughts in your head. They listen. I go and see people like who have been tormented by these demonic entities, and they say, I've got a smudge stick, and you can imagine them standing there with their arms folded and watching you smudge round, as if, oh yeah, a smudge stick's going to get rid of me.
It would be something like using a water pistol against a rhino, I would think.
That's it. Yes, yeah, or against a tank.
Yes. Well, and a lot of these, especially the non-human entities, could potentially be hundreds, if not thousands of years old. So they have the advantage of time and experience. So,
oh, absolutely.
Which kind of takes me into my next question. How do you deal with negative entities?
So, Charles, I learned very, very early on from that first time that I went out with Val is never go alone. Always go with another psychic. They can never fool you. They can never make you think that they are something they are not. And they will make you think that it's something you're not. You're trying to battle something that is incredibly powerful, that's lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and little old you going along, yes. So with your smudge stick, no. I always go along with at least another psychic, at least, depending what the problem is. Sometimes I'll go along with four. There'll be four of us that will go along, and it's that power of more than one that is what enables us to be able to beat it. You can't win on your own. They're too powerful.
So you're saying basically that strength in numbers applies even more in psychic instances than it would in a physical instance.
Yes, because it's about joining your energies together. So when we're working together, I will be constantly saying to the person that I'm with, can you sense anything in this room? Where in this room? So we're tuning together. We're locking our energies. All of us are constantly looking at each other. And I won't say to you, Charles, I won't say to you, oh, I've got something dark up that corner there. I will just say, what are you picking up where in this room? And when you say right-hand corner, I'm thinking, right, we're in tune here together. What have you got there? And that's it. And all together, you are linking your energies and your vibration together to create that power.
Now, would you say that these entities, they're put off by being caught doing these things? Once they know that you realize that they're doing this, do you think that weakens them?
Well, they will decide whether to do battle with you or whether they will decide to try and get away from you. And believe me, they will take on any form that they can. They will shrink down into tiny things, hide behind cuddly toys. They will try the power to try and frighten you, and then they will try hiding. And the first thing that we always do before we get into the property is to seal it. Is to seal the house before we get into there, because by sealing it, it can't get out. Mm-hmm. And there was a reason for that, Charles. Many, many years ago, we went out to look at this. Four of us went out to look at this property, and they'd had bar stools stood up on tables, spinning. The kettle had melted. There'd been 3 fires in the house. There'd been lots and lots of problems, and we got there. There's nothing there. It wasn't, the energy's dark, but there's nothing in there. And we spent a good hour in the property. And the next day or the day after, the woman rings me back again and says, "Oh, the problem's here." And you get those who they'll always say that the next day. But I mean, I knew there hadn't been anything there, and something in my head said, "Did you talk about them coming in the house?" And I said this to her, and she said yes. I said, because I asked you not to, because upstairs I said to her, don't talk in the house, don't warn it you're coming. Yes, don't warn it you're coming. And she said, I did, but not much. And I said, there's your answer. So I went back, and the spirit world said to me, get the little boy there, which I wasn't really very keen about the idea of it. And I got there, and this little boy sitting there, you call them soothers, we call them dubbies or diddies. Right. And he's sitting there with his diddy in his mouth. And he looks at me, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing here talking to him? And in my head, it said, say to him, and I said, do you know any bad men? And he said, yes. And he was talking to me, and his parents were like, he can't even talk. And he was talking to me, and he was saying to me, and he said, yes, out came his dummy. He said, bad man upstairs, bad man upstairs. He said, where's he? Sister's room, bad man, bad man, know you're here. Bad man, know you're coming. And bad man hiding from you. And I said, did the bad man know I came last time? And he said, yes. He said, bad man hid in that house over there. And what absolutely threw the husband in an almost meltdown is before the house they were living in had been his grandparents, and the house opposite had featured in the local rag paper 15 years previously saying that house was haunted.
I see.
And the child had said the exact house that was haunted and where this man had gone to hide. And apparently after we'd left the last time, about an hour and a half later, the front door opened and slammed with so much force it shook the house. But of course now, it didn't know I was coming, and I'd sealed it in, and it couldn't get out.
So at that point, you can actually deal with it rather than, I guess ideally you would have to chase it and not know where it's going.
Well, if you go, you see, they can go through the walls. I can't. So if
true.
It goes next door, I'm stuck. Yes, you know,
right.
if it goes and hides in the house next door, I can't get it. I can't get it out. But we were a row of houses here, but it had gone over the road and over there. So, but the fact that, and because he said to me, I said, why did you go to that house? And he said to me, lady in that house, and it's been in the papers 15 years previously that house had been haunted by a lady.
I see. So
how amazing is that? Yeah.
So the other house was kind of prepped for him to come in since it already had energy there.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
So if someone's having difficulty, what's the first thing that you would recommend? I mean, not necessarily, I guess, extreme difficulty, but when things start, when odd things start, when they start hearing noises and things of that nature, what would you think would be the first response to something like that?
Well, the first thing is to stop convincing yourself you're going mad.
Okay.
The second thing is don't be ashamed, because that's the first thing that people are ashamed. They're ashamed. The husband's ashamed he can't deal with it, and the man of the house can't deal with it. Somebody else is having to deal with it. So it's put the shame aside. Believe in yourself. Believe you're not going mad, and believe that something's happening. And then don't communicate with it and seek help.
Now, on the subject of seeking help, how do you go about that? I mean, typically you can't just pick up the yellow pages or something along that line. How would you find somebody that has the credentials to deal with something like that?
I think I forgot to say as well, Charles, another one is that if it's bothering your children, is to say, go away and don't communicate with it. Give it nothing, no energy. And if that doesn't work, then seek help. The local spiritualist churches or a very good local paranormal group is where I would seek help. You know, I don't want some amateur one. I remember somebody knowing somebody who knew somebody. They went in this house to deal with this problem, and they went with all their stuff and they set it all up, and they put the cameras up. Batteries dead. Cameras up again. Batteries dead. I think 3 times in 10 minutes it ripped all the life out, all the batteries, and the temperature dropped by 10 degrees, and they ran out the house because that they'd seen it. They'd be watching the ghost programs and they'd seen the things on there, and I thought, well, I'll have a bash at that. I'll have a go at that, and then found out it wasn't quite as easy. But of course, now what you've done is, in professional terms, you've brassed off the thing that's troubling you.
Yes.
You've shown your hand that you're going to try and get rid of it, and it's brassed off with you, and it will often come back with a vengeance.
Now, do you think these entities can tell if the person there is an amateur?
Oh, yes. They will go battle with you. They will go battle with you. They will try with you. They will toy with you, and they'll go battle with you. And, they'll come at you. And that's why, I've been there and I've been trying to find something, and it's gone from something probably about 1 foot on the floor to about 7 feet screaming over you, and to see whether you go, you've lost. Yeah, you've done that. You've lost. Yeah, that you've disengaged. Yes. Bear in mind the battle here, taking break. The battle is for energy, and if you lose all that energy you've generated to try to beat it, it's now got, and it's now twice as powerful. So the person who's living in that house, if you lose, I mean, we have stayed sometimes over 2 hours, and sometimes nearly 3 hours. And because knowing that if we go without knocking that through that gateway, this family's going to have a hell. It's going to be twice as bad.
Right, because even though they've consulted you and asked you in, they don't personally have the tools to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So if you leave and it's unresolved, as you said, it could be much worse for them.
Oh, it will be. It will be. That's why, people need to be very careful when they go in and have a play at being, a Ghostbuster, and they're not experienced, they're not qualified. Well, not qualified, they're not experienced. They don't know what they're doing. They mess with it. It plays with them, it toys with them, and then it makes the life 10 times worse for the family.
Now, are there any, other than the one you just mentioned, are there any cases that stand out in your mind?
Well, talking about being beaten, I remember we went to do one, and it was where the batteries had been ripped out and they'd caused all these problems. It was it really was awful in that house. You could, in fact, it's on my website. The footage from it is on there. And the step ladders, old-fashioned wooden step ladders that you can barely carry, that are on the stairs, and they are spinning. And the BBC, which is like in this country, BBC Radio, local BBC Radio came out with me, and they went upstairs to look at where these ladders were being, and there was nothing. There was just like nothing. It was just walls, and these step ladders were twisting and somebody said to them, well, why don't you go up the stairs? Because she'll throw the ladders at me. And it was a she. She'll throw the ladders at me. If I go up the stairs, she'll throw the ladders. And we'd gone to this property, and she went too quickly. Yes, and there was 4 of us dealing with her, or 5 of us, and she went too quickly. And they hadn't told the daughter, who was amazing, and she was 7 years old at the time. They hadn't told the daughter that we were coming in, and she came running in the house. She had 2 names for this demon. Jezebeth was one of them, and we looked it up, and it's actually a real demon. It's the demon of lies and deception. And she came running in the house, a 7-year-old, going, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, what have you done?" She said, Jezebeth said you've tried to get rid of her, and she's so angry with you. And she's going to hurt Vicky now. That was another sister. And that night, the television flew off the shelf and blacked both the girls' eyes.
Oh, no. Were you able to resolve this?
Oh, yes, we went back in. And we won. I mean, it was a battle, but we went back in. But how did that 7-year-old know if that demon hadn't have gone to her and told her? How did she know? Yeah, she ran in the door going, "Mummy, mummy, what have you done?"
Yeah, there would be no way for her to know this.
No.
Do you think kids are exceptionally sensitive to spirits and psychic energy and things of that nature?
Absolutely. We are born psychic. We are born with such an amazing gift. And I often say, you watch a newborn baby and you watch them there and you'll see them, and you'll see them looking and laughing and smiling, and they can see. It's like the veil between the two worlds is much, much thinner. And it's only when they get to 7, 8, it starts to come down a bit. 9, 10, they start to lose it. Get into the teens, it's gone, and then hopefully they get out the terrible teens and they regroup and they get it back again. But children are incredibly psychic, and incredibly resilient. They're incredibly resilient. I remember going to one house, and the house was 3-story. The house was 3-story high house, and it was really, really dark. This house was, and we get there, and Mom has got the little boy there, and I am not happy to have this child in this house. It doesn't feel right. So what we did is there were 5 of us that night. So I took one of the party out and sat him downstairs as a cloak around the little boy to protect him, and held him in a protection while we were upstairs. And we were upstairs on the 3rd floor, and it was in the eaves of this house, and we're struggling to find it. And Patrick, my colleague's name, shouts upstairs to me, Sandrea, Sandrea. And he said, the little boy says is in the eaves. Now, it's 3 stories. How does that little boy know that we can't find it? Yeah? And the type of the house was, you came through the front door and you came into the lounge, and there was a door out. Then the stairs were up, and then there were 2 more doors. There was no sound. You couldn't have heard anything. And in the end, what I had to do was Patrick stood in the doorway, the little boy, and the little boy told him, Patrick was shouting up, and I think we'd got somebody on the landing who was relaying us into us, because we were right at the back of the house in the eaves, 3 stories up, and that's how I did that. And that little boy knew that we couldn't catch it, yes? That little boy knew that we couldn't catch it. That little boy knew, because Patrick shouted up to me and said, Sandra, what the little boy's name was, it knows it's hiding from you. He says it's hiding. So, and he kept telling me what was going on. And so I kept flushing this thing out because this little boy was telling me. And do you know how that had got in the house?
I wouldn't have any idea.
Well, they lived in an area, and the area it was close to a place outside Wolverhampton called Coven, which I suppose really, is that called Coven? C-O-V-N. I never made that connection for years. And they were out walking over some lands that's very, very much associated with the Cavaliers and the Roundheads and all that, all associated with that, very, very strong in history. And they found a very old glass bottle. And they brought the glass bottle into the house. It was as if, and they said to us, it's come in a bottle. And we said to them, you brought something in, you brought a little container. She said, oh my goodness, it's this bottle. And it never came back in. He got a bottle and threw it back from where it came from, and it never came in. But I named that story Genie in a Bottle.
Well, it's a good name for it, but
yeah.
And that kind of points out that they really don't need much to attach to.
No.
Oh, you hear stories about pieces of jewelry being haunted and things of that nature. And one question I wanted to ask you, kind of segueing into this, when the same person has repeated encounters with the paranormal, would it be fair to say that it's less the area and more the person that's haunted?
It can be the person that's haunted. You're absolutely right there. You know, the person, without a doubt, it can. You know, the person can be haunted. Things can attach to them, and it can follow them around wherever they go. Lesser possibility is that, you know, they're in a very psychic area, a very highly charged area where things are likely to happen. And also, if you're psychic, you're liable to attract it. You're like a Beletian beacon. You're like a light. You're like a light that shines, and often wayward souls or strange things will often be attracted to you. So, but absolutely, it can be furniture, clocks, jewellery, or the person. And I've known that people who've had it attached for years, and it just gets out of control, and they can't deal with it anymore. They can't deal with it. They can't deal with it anymore. And then they'll call for help, and then you start looking at it, you start tracking it, and you find, well, they've actually been in this situation. You know, it's probably been with them for 10 years. Or it's been with them since. Very, very interesting one was. A young girl, and it was I was at the Staffordshire church. I was running a group one night, and this call came in, and I went out there, and she'd been out with the girls and had some fun, and she'd banged her head, and she'd banged her head, and she started writing on the wall that was you couldn't even read it. And writing and talking in a strange voice, and talking and it was tracked back. To cut the story short, she'd had her teeth removed from the dentist when she'd been 10 years old, and she remembered being awake and this thing attaching to her, and on and off from the age of then till in her 20s. and then she banged her head, and it like all came to the forefront, and she was like they didn't recognise she was talking in a different language. I think she was talking Spanish, if I remember rightly. She was talking Spanish, and a boyfriend that woke up was like, this wall was covered in this writing, and it was helping me, but it was like you couldn't write that small, and how she'd written all over this wall. And I think she'd had so much bad luck in her life, and it's just almost been like there, attached to her, feeding off her, leching off her. Then she'd had the bang, she'd brought it to the forefront, and so then we were able to clear it. So falling over drunk, and actually some good had come of it.
Well, see, I was going to ask the resolution, and I guess it wouldn't be good advice to recommend for a problem to just get drunk and hit your head.
No,
but in this case, it was a fortunate occurrence.
Yes.
So if a person thinks that the energy is centered on them specifically, how would they go about resolving that?
I always say to people, Charles, learn protection. Learn to ask the angels to look after you, to protect the doorway to your soul, to protect you from darkness. And again, I would do that. And if you think it's there and you think something's trying to communicate with you, do not engage with it. Do not talk to it. Do not, whatever you do not invite it to communicate with you. Because, this is the, once you do that invitation, they have a right to be there. It's like throwing your door open on a Saturday night and saying, come on in, party, and then complaining afterwards. You've opened the door, you've invited them in. And go seek help. Go seek that expert paranormal groups. They're all over the place, and go to the bona fide ones, the ones that the experts, as I keep saying, but do not engage with it. Do not talk to it.
Now, you have a wealth of information on this subject and others, and more than a person could convey in one podcast episode. How would people be able to follow you and take advantage of your experiences, like through your books and everything else? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm a columnist for part of the Bayer Group, Fate and Fortune magazine. It's Take a Break, Fate and Fortune, which I write once a month. And in that I talk about the nice side of it. I talk about a day in the afterlife, when I communicate with somebody who's residing in heaven. And also you can find me on my website and on my Facebook. I do have 2 books, but my 2 books are now coming to the end of their print. One was printed, funny enough, in America by Llewellyn's. My last one, Vanquishing Ghosts and Demons. But I've got another book that's in the process now at the moment. It's going through the editing, ready to come out, and that's going to be Children Seeing Darkness. So we're working on that. So hopefully that will be out, next 6 months.
And I'm assuming you'll give updates to that on your Facebook page and things like that.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Well, because when someone is curious, they want as much information as they can get. And my opinion is that if you're going to get information from an experienced source. There's a lot of information out there that isn't necessarily accurate. So I'm just trying to make it easier for people to sort through the chaff, as it were.
Yeah, I always say the first thing to do is start to read. And you are right. It's sorting the chaff out there, because there is out there, and you're going to meet. There's a lot of ego out there in ghost hunts, and I've heard people doing ghost hunts where the people have been screaming at them, at the spirit world, and trying to evoke them. You're thinking, this is not what this is about. This is not what this is about. I think it's wonderful that people have got curiosity, and that people are interested, and they've seen beyond a 3D world. We're not a 3D world. There's a much, much bigger world out there. And I think when you start to believe and you start to understand, it's a far better, richer place. I mean, I always try to push people through the spiritualist movement, but there are other equally good bona fide movements. Join a club, join them, learn. Don't go out, don't go and buy your dowsing sticks, your book, and go out there. You're asking for trouble. It's I'm not saying don't do it, but learn. baby footsteps, and learn out there. Learn to tune in your psychic gift. Start to use your psychic gift. The more you listen to it, the stronger it gets.
I would say a good amount of patience would be applicable here, wouldn't it? People have a tendency to learn just enough to get started, and they never go back to learn. They just roll with it, kind of. And I would say that would be counterproductive in this case, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, you get the others where they want to learn like within 2 months, and they want to get started, and that it's a long time. It's a long time to develop. If you really want to develop your psychic gift so that it's reliable and it's trustworthy, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time to get there. The first thing you've got to do is tune into it. You've got to. It's like a radio station. You've got to get the frequency. When you got the frequency, you've got to chat. Oops, I've got the frequency now, and then you've got to work with it.
Well, that's good and solid advice. Now, you had mentioned to me before an instance where a lady had actually been deceived by a spirit and ended up bilking her for a lot of money and ruining her life. Would you care to share that story again?
Yes. She, a lovely soul, I have to say. She really was a lovely soul. And started reading, been to a local shop and brought some crystals and started reading books and that. Oh, book on angels. I'll open up to my angel. And there, whoa, her angel comes through straight away. And this lady had never had a lot in life, but a marriage had quite tragically failed because I think he got off with somebody else, and she'd got some money, and I think it was £40,000 is what she'd got. Anyway, this angel, this angel controlled her life and where she went, what she did, who she mixed with, and by the time that it ended in the end, this angel had got her to give away that £40,000 under the pretense that she was going to win the lottery. She didn't need it, and the woman had given away everything she'd got. And by the time we came along, the money had already gone. She'd already given it away to people, and it wasn't an angel at all. It was, and it was controlling her life. She had exercise book where she sat and she wrote, and she's always all angelic. It's really angelic, and you're like, read it. Thinking, do you think an angel would write this? And it was so dark. I mean, they were obviously trying to pretend to be an angel because they were trying to say, and there's love, and the angels are watching over you, and then it was dark, and it destroyed her. It had all but destroyed her, and then fortunately she'd found us. But by the time she'd found us, it had literally just taken over her whole life.
Now, was she able to recover after this?
She recovered, but I don't think she ever got her money back. She'd lost her money. She'd lost her money. She wouldn't do anything. It was, well, I'll have to ask my angels what my angels say that I'm going to do. And it literally was controlling. It literally was controlling her whole life. Yes, she did. She recovered, and I think she put the crystals away. She put the crystals away and put those on one side, and carried on with life for normal. I think she learned. It's when you give all your power away, isn't it, Charles? She'd given all her power away. She'd got nothing in her life. She wasn't working at the time. Getting up in the morning, oh, I'll talk to my angel. Yes, yeah. Now, when you're doing things like automatic writing, it's not coming through your heart. So you don't know what that's saying. You know, it's coming out your hands. And it's like, that's really is quite dangerous.
Well, and that was one of the reasons I wanted you to reshare this story, is because a lot of people have a tendency, when you say negative spirits, they think horns and pitchforks and, thundering voices and things like that. But negative energy, negative spirits, I guess, would have a tendency to be quite a bit sneakier than that. So that was a great example of how something negative could ruin this person's life. Now, based on what you'd said before, is it possible that this so-called angel, which really wasn't, was feeding off of her energy and her depression and her desperation and everything during all of this?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The hold it had got over her. It was almost like she felt as if it was actually trying to get in her body. When we spoke to her afterwards, it was almost like as if it was trying to totally possess her. But possession is a very, very rare thing. It's a very, very rare thing. Hauntings are often quite not very normal possession. It really is. You're looking at the rarity characters here, but it's almost as if that's what it was trying to do. It was trying to get into. It was actually trying to physically get into her body to take over.
And I would think that it would be much easier to be able to do that if you were actually invited in.
Absolutely, and that's always the danger. Is that when it's like an Ouija board. It's like doing an Ouija board with no control. It's no protection, no control, and you're going. Is anybody there? You're basically saying, "Come on down, come on in, come and join us." You're actually inviting. You're actually, and I've seen this happen. And what will happen? A wayward spirit happens to be walking past, sees this board, and it stands there and it listens. And you go, "Oh, I do hope my granddad comes through." I didn't know your granddad was dead. Yeah, he died a couple of years ago. It was really tragic. Granddad Reg, remember Granddad Reg? Yeah. And then on the board starts to do R-R-E. Oh my God, it's Granddad Reg. Yeah, Granddad. Yeah, do you understand? Very weak at first, and now you're piling all that energy in there, and it's going munch, 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 getting stronger, eating all the energy. Yeah, feeding it, and then just stand there and listen to what you're saying, and then just repeat it back to you. Yes, and now you're doing the book, and oh yeah, it was my mum's dad. Mum.
Based on that, would it be fair to say that even if any entity in the area isn't speaking, it probably is still listening?
Oh, yeah. Oh yes, and you try to say that to people, but they're just like humans without they're just they're humans without a body. Yes, their soul is still there and it's listening precisely to what it is that you're saying, even if it's not saying. It's listening. It's listening. It's absorbing. Yeah. Always remember, be careful what you invite in.
Yes.
What comes in so easily may not go out so quickly.
Well, you mentioned throwing open the doors kind of like that on Saturday night, saying, "Come on in and party." I would think that opening a door in that case is a lot easier than closing it back. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yes, and if you let's go. But and I'm not stopping saying don't use spirit boards or Ouija boards. I'm just saying you use them responsibly, professionally, and in control of that board. That you do all your work, you do everything. Just to sit there and go, "Is anybody there?" When you do that, you break down your protection. You're saying, "Coming in." You're saying, "Coming in," and it's the Saturday night on Facebook free drink. Party round,
yes.
Party round Lil's house, yes, and then all these people start pouring. You go, "Bro, didn't invite you?" "Yes, you did. It was there on Facebook."
Exactly.
You inadvertently, you've invited them in. Now, once they're in there, they are not going to go away. That doorway is going to be a lot harder to shut than it is, because you can shut the doorway, but if you shut the doorway and you haven't got them through that doorway, you're shutting the doorway with them there. Yes,
right.
So not only have you. Yeah, you've got to get the bouncers to get a bounce.
Right, they can't open the door themselves in either direction. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yep.
So you can actually bring them in, shut the door, and then you're stuck with them.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, we've talked about some of the negative aspects of this, but is there a story that you would like to share that you think is had a very positive resolution for you personally?
I'm trying to think. I have so many positive stories, and I'm trying to think of one.
That's a good problem to have. A lot of positive.
Yes,
stories.
yes. Somebody's just prompted me. I'll give you a very. I'll give you a positive one. Possibly not for this earth, but possibly not for people on here, but. I've still got the photograph, and through a friend of a friend, Mum's there watching a little 3-year-old boy in the garden, looking Oh, he's running around, he's playing. They've spent £2,000 on this garden. This garden is barren, yeah? It's like a war zone. And England's very lush. You get a lot of grass and a lot of green. That's one thing we never have to worry about out here. So she took the picture. And it was only a couple of weeks later that she looked back through the picture, and there is two little boys. And it's what you call a doppelganger. And he's absolutely identical to her own son, except there's no gloves. Her little boy's got gloves on. This little boy hasn't. And his feet are in such a position that had he stood up, he'd have fallen over, yeah? So his feet... his feet are like instead of his feet being like that, all like that for the walking position, you know, the heel toe, his toes down. So if he'd have stood, he'd have fallen down. And so a friend of a friend, we went there, and when we got there, underneath the grounds, there had been a lot of mining in the area. There was all this dark dirt sludge, and we got all these beautiful angelic creatures sitting around this dark sludge. That was there in the ground, that was sitting right under this garden, and they'd sent for us for help. They were like there were earth sprites and pixies, and you know that you don't normally talk about, you don't mention in people, but do you know, they'd lived in this house about 4 or 5 years, and we cleared this out. We got rid of all this dirt and sludge, and it was a portal, and all the negativity, like a dirty drain, the stuff had run there and got clean. We moved it all out of the way, and we cleansed it all that way. And 6 weeks later, she sent me the photographs, and there was this garden just growing naturally.
See, that's amazing.
Got grass back. The grass had actually come back for the first time, and they'd been there about 6 years. And like I said, they spent £2,000 landscaping it, having it all laid out, and nothing. And they just all grew back naturally. So I suppose that was and I've got lots and lots of stories like that where people have. And they're always there to help you, Charles. You know, your loved ones when you pass over are there waiting to help you, and anything that they can do to help you, you know, it's believe in the new pennies you see on the grounds. You know, it's not only feathers, not only rainbows. New pennies are another one, you know, just to try to say there's hope. We're there. We're trying to help you. Yes, you know, we're there. We're helping you. We're guiding you. We're showing you the way. And I think possibly another story that comes to mind is that you can't change fate. You can't change what's happening. You can't change what's going to happen. And it was a very dear friend of mine is that walking to work for 4 weeks, a whole month, walking to work. She used to park in a car park and go along this walk with all trees and that, like a park. And every day for 4 weeks, a robin came along with her. And it walked along with her all the way along for 4 weeks. And that robin was with her. And then her husband very tragically died. But that scene gave her so much joy and comfort because she realised that robin had been sent. We can't change what's going to happen to you. We can't undo what's going to happen to you. But we want you to know, we know, and we're here and we're walking with you. So, and I think that gave such comfort and joy for her. You know, I think at the first she just thought, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you stop it? But you can't change it. You can't change what's going to happen. You can't change reality. That's unfortunate, yeah.
But possibly this gave her the extra strength she needed to get through the bad time. It did.
It did, and even now she'll look for a robin. Even now she'll look for a robin and say, "There's the robin." Yeah, and even now she'll look and see her, and she sees a robin as being a sign. So,
and I'd say that is a very positive story, and it gives her hope for the future.
Yeah, it did give her hope for the future, and it opened all doorways for her. And she's now a paranormal investigator herself, and a fantastic healer. And maybe, who knows, in the future she'll come and join you and tell you some of her stories.
I would be interested in speaking with her. But
yes. But
I have a two-sided question here that I typically ask someone that has experience. What would you say to a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic that doesn't believe anything paranormal exists at all? What would you say to them? And then what would you say to a believer
I think to those I'd respect them and say carry on. I think I'd carry on, but the really downside, it's actually a bit of a dull life if you're not open to anything. What a dull life to only believe that this exists. What a dull life not to think that there's a whole load of people or souls in the wings, wishing you on and wishing you well and trying to guide you and take you into the right direction. And I respect that their values and I respect their point of views, but I'm just thinking how dull life is when you are so closed. Because when you believe and when you can see, the joy that you can feel when you open up to things, and we all get it, and you look and you get those wow moments and you get those, and it's because you're open to things, yes? And I think when you're open, you see more, you sense more, and I think life is a lot better, richer place when you're open to things. And to the believers, I'll just keep believing, but always use discernment. Yeah, always use discernment. Never be afraid to question, thinking, is that me? Yes, is that me? Did that happen? Or is that my is that my imagination? Like you suddenly find that it's the flickering lights are not necessarily the flickering lights, are they? There could be a faulty bulb. It's just using that. It's just not assuming that and be accepting of everything.
And sometimes a dream is just a dream.
Do you're absolutely right. Sometimes a dream is just a dream. It's your mind going through. It's your mind just sorting things out, isn't it? It's your mind just it's your mind just sorting out some of the rubbish and that and getting it out of the way. Although sometimes it can be lots of other things, but it can be a warning. It can be showing you things. But you're absolutely right. Don't always think that every time you dream that it's got some poetic reasoning behind it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your experience with everyone. And hopefully sometime soon we'll have you back on.
Charles, I would very much like to come back on again. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. It's actually been a nice experience. It really has. I've really enjoyed it.
I agree completely. This is Charles Romans, and on behalf of myself and our guests, thank you for joining us on this walk through the shadows of legend. If you like what you heard, please follow us and visit our website at shadowsoflegend.com and support our Patreon page to help keep the content flowing. And if you would like to be a guest and share your own brush with a stranger paranormal, don't hesitate to email us and include a contact number. The strange and surreal, the normal and the paranormal are all aspects of the world in which we live. As you reflect upon the stories we have shared, keep in mind that the people sharing these stories are actual, real people just like us. Were the stories shared compelling enough to be given credibility, or should they be relegated to the deeper part of the shadows? But when determining this, it might be a good idea to keep an open mind, because when we look around, we might discover that our own world is less brightly lit than we once thought. Until next time, I'll be waiting for you in the shadows of